this day, every time I watch Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan again, I still burst into tears at Spock's departure. I still vividly remember the scene of him lying in the nuclear reactor chamber, his weak voice saying to Kirk, "I have lived, and I have loved." Then his hand touching the glass, his final gaze completely calm. That moment, even after having watched it dozens of times, still makes my heart tighten. That is exactly the reason why I have rewatched Star Trek 2 dozens of times. And thanks to that as well, I have discovered the hidden details behind the film which I bet you have never noticed. Did you know that 61-year-old Ricardo Montalban still showed a chest that was 100% real? Or that the aerial scene almost caused the film to receive an R rating? That Gene Roddenberry may have leaked Spock's death? Or that the Reliant Bridge was just the Enterprise recoloured? In today's video, we will together lift the curtain behind Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, 1982, to explore 20 little-known facts. 20. Khan's chest is real. What shocked all audiences of Star Trek II? The Wrath of Khan the most when watching the film was certainly the moment of seeing Ricardo Montalban shirtless, showing off an extremely hot chest and body. But what was even more surprising was that in 1982, Ricardo Montalban, in the role of Khan Noonien Singh, was already 61 years old. Therefore, many people believed that he used rubber chess pieces, fake props, a familiar makeup trick of that time. That scene made the entire theatre buzz. Everyone wondered how an older man could maintain such firm muscles. The film's costume department had to officially issue a statement. There was nothing fake at all. 100% was Montalban's real body. He had trained harshly for decades since his younger years acting in television and cinema. Regular gym sessions, a strict diet helped him maintain an impressive physique even after passing age 60. The result was that chest becoming one of the most iconic sci-fi villain images, still making people marvel every time they rewatch it. Today, sitting and recalling it, we can see that this dedication was not only acting, but also respect for the role and the audience. A quiet, behind-the-scenes detail, but full of weight. 19. The ear eel scene almost turned the film into R-rated. Do you remember the SETI eel crawling into Chekhov's and Terrell's ears in Star Trek II? The Wrath of Khan. That moment made the entire theatre fall completely silent. Then many people shuddered because of how grotesque it was. Initially, Nicholas Meyer and the effects team designed this scene much more detailed. The eel had dripping blood, clear slimy sounds when it entered the ear, even close-up shots showing the scalp skin being slightly torn and blood flowing. In 1982, the film rating system only had PG or R. PG-13 did not yet exist. When the test cut was submitted to the MPAA, they immediately warned if that level of horror was kept, the film would be rated R, restricting young audiences and heavily affecting revenue. Meyer had to cut it down severely, removing horrifying sounds, blurring blood details, shortening the invasion shots to reduce the disturbing impact. Even so, the scene was still enough to haunt audiences for a long time. This incident directly contributed to the creation of the PG-13 rating, later helping action science fiction films retain tension while still being accessible to families. Watching it again today, we can see that those cuts not only saved the film, but also changed how Hollywood balances horror and audience accessibility. A quiet but important behind-the-scenes detail. 18. Kirk's shout of Khan's name becomes an audio classic. When Kirk shouts, "Khan," in desperation, that moment seems to shake the entire silent space of the universe. The scene takes place in a vacuum where science confirms that sound cannot travel yet. William Shatner's angry roar still echoes, as if Kirk's pain and fury have surpassed every law of physics. Many audiences at that time sat in the theatre, hearts pounding clearly, feeling the power of that moment, not because sound truly spread, but because it struck straight into emotion. Nicholas Meyer deliberately kept this detail, even though he clearly knew the science was inaccurate. He wanted to prioritize the character's inner pain over absolute adherence to the rules of the universe. In space, no one hears you scream, unless you are James T. Kirk. That joking line later became a classic meme in the fan community. Today, when watching it again, we still feel the weight of that shout. A shout that not only breaks the silence of the vacuum, but also carves itself into the collective memory of many generations. It reminds us that Star Trek, though science fiction, has always placed humans and emotions above everything else. 17. Gene Roddenberry may have personally sabotaged Star Trek. Few people know that Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, may have unintentionally or intentionally contributed to destroying the very film he loved the most. When the Wrath of Khan script was leaked, revealing the detail that Spock would die, many members of the film crew suspected that Roddenberry himself was the source of the leak. After the motion picture, he had lost major creative control, no longer being deeply involved in the project. Instead of staying silent, Roddenberry publicly criticised the film from the pre-production stage, calling it not true to the spirit of Star Trek. Those comments spread quickly, especially when the leaked detail strangely appeared at fan conventions, places where he often appeared and talked with fans. Whether intentional or just an accidental slip of the tongue, the consequences were severe. Paramount's marketing was thrown into disorder. Audiences knew about Spock's death before the film reached theatres, reducing surprise and tension. Nicholas Meyer and Harve Bennett faced greater pressure than ever before. Roddenberry loved the Star Trek universe in his own way, but that love sometimes made things more difficult for those who were trying to save the franchise. 16. The shooting schedule deliberately written as nonsense to prevent content leaks. One rather humorous secret behind Star Trek II. The Wrath of Khan is how the crew fought script leaks with nonsensical tricks that were hard to believe. From the very beginning of the project, the script was seriously leaked, forcing Paramount to tighten security limiting who could view daily strictly controlling passes to the set. To trace the source of the leak, each script copy was planted with different typographical errors, and they discovered that Gene Roddenberry was involved. The final solution was truly ridiculous. The official shooting schedule used completely fabricated scene descriptions unrelated to the real content. Spock kills Kirk with a phaser. Kirk goes to eat sushi with a Klingon spot, comes back to life and takes revenge on the entire crew. Those lines made anyone who secretly read them think the crew was making some bizarre movie, not Wrath of Khan. Only insiders knew what was real and what was fake. 15. A mysterious child was cut from the film. You may not know that in the original script of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, there once existed a mysterious character, a child on the planet Ceti Alpha 5. When Chekhov and Terrell land to explore Botany Bay, Khan's abandoned ship, they discover not only the wreck but also a small child surviving among the ruins. The child appears silently, looks at them with confused eyes, then disappears without clear explanation. Later in the draft, there is even a scene where the child approaches the Genesis torpedo right before it explodes, like a hint about fragile survival amid destruction. Gene Roddenberry, when reading the script, complained strongly. This character was meaningless, contributed nothing to the main plot, and only distracted emotions. He demanded it be cut completely. The crew agreed, and the child vanished from the finished film without a trace. Today, when watching it again, we realise that this absence leaves a strange gap, a forgotten fragment in a story about hatred and sacrifice. That small detail reminds us that even the best ideas can be discarded if they do not fit the overall spirit. A quiet behind-the-scenes secret, but one that is enough to make us reflect on what never made it to the screen. 14. Kirstie Alley slept with Vulcan ears on. The Vulcan role of Savick was Kirstie Alley's first film role. At that time, Alley was very young, poor, and always afraid of being exposed as a rookie among a cast of veteran stars. The pressure was so great that she could hardly sleep. In particular, the process of attaching the Vulcan ears took hours. The makeup team had to apply specialized glue, adjust meticulously so the fake ears looked naturally real. Once they were attached, removing them was even more complicated. So Alley decided to sleep with the Vulcan ears firmly attached to her head all night. She later recalled that the wig was even worse, like a dead cat stuck on your head, heavy and unbearably itchy. Even so, she persisted, keeping the fake ears on to be ready to film at any time. Those sleepless nights, anxiety mixed with determination, helped Alley deliver a cold, mysterious but deeply layered Savick, a fresh Vulcan character that impressed audiences from the very first appearance. Thinking back today, that small detail feels like proof of the quiet dedication of a young actress willing to endure everything for a perfect performance. A warm, behind-the-scenes memory amid tense days on set. 13. The television department saved the entire franchise. After the relative failure of the motion picture, which earned only $44 million compared to expectations, Paramount once considered ending the film series. The studio did not want to risk more large budgets. It was the television department accustomed to tight budgets that proposed a different direction, making the sequel in the style of an expanded TV movie with a budget of only about $11 million. They focused on what truly mattered, developing characters more deeply, exploring emotions among the crew members, and building a tight storyline instead of indulging in spectacular effects. Nicholas Meyer and Harve Bennett seized that idea, turning Wrath of Khan into a personal story full of drama and tragedy. The result not only saved the project, but also created a template for nearly 15 years of Star Trek afterward. Films that emphasized humans' inner conflict and relationships more than special effects. Thanks to the quiet decision from the TV department, the franchise not only survived, but became stronger than ever. Looking back today, we see it as a pivotal moment when everything seemed to be ending. Wisdom from the television bloodline opened a new golden era. 12. The film stole scenes from the previous installment. Nicholas Meyer frankly admitted that Wrath of Khan did not have enough money to shoot everything new like the motion picture. Therefore, they borrowed the scene of the Enterprise leaving space dock, one of the most beautiful shots in the film, taken exactly from the 1979 version, only lightly adjusting effects and colour to match. The regular Y space station scene was also cleverly reused, reversed, repainting the outer hull, adding a few new lighting details to make it look like a completely different location. These cost-saving tricks helped the film look far more grand than its budget, which was only about 1/10 of the previous installment. Audiences at that time sat in theatres amazed by the smoothness of the visuals, few realising they had appeared before. Nicholas Meyer later laughed and said that it was the only way to maintain image quality without bankrupting the project. It was proof of a period of filmmaking where creativity often arose from limitations, not from massive budgets. A quiet behind-the-scenes detail, but enough for us to appreciate the film more, and to understand why Wrath of Khan is still considered one of the best installments of the series. 11. The Reliant Bridge is actually the Enterprise Bridge. Few people know that to save costs, the crew did not build a new bridge set for the Reliant. Instead, they used the original Enterprise Bridge set from previous films, only changing the lighting to a blazing red tone, rearranging the seating positions, adding a few small decorative details such as differently coloured control panels and new neon lights. The result was that audiences did not notice the repetition at all. Many even praised the Reliant bridge design as more distinctive and modern than the Enterprise. Nicholas Meyer later laughed and said that this was one of his most successful tricks. Under the pressure of a limited budget, that small creativity helped the film maintain realism and professionalism. Thinking about it today, we see that it was not just saving money, but also the art of turning the old into the new, a memorable behind-the-scenes lesson in smart filmmaking. 10. The Genesis device was the idea that saved Star Trek. When the project began, Genesis was envisioned simply as an Omega device, a weapon capable of destroying an entire planet in an instant. However, art director Mike Miner proposed a major change, turning it into a tool for planetary regeneration, capable of creating life from death, carrying philosophical depth about creation and destruction. Harve Bennett, the producer, after hearing it, said directly, "Your idea saved Star Trek." That shift not only enriched the plot, but also transformed Wrath of Khan from an ordinary action film into a profound story about life and death, aging and hope. Without Genesis in that form, the film would have struggled to achieve such strong emotional appeal. That idea not only saved the project, but also reshaped the way Star Trek explored humanity's grand themes. A quiet but pivotal change that helped the film go far beyond what was originally intended. 9. Pixar's first cinematic CGI. When work began on the Genesis device activation scene, the crew initially planned only a simple effects sequence like an aquarium with rocks and a few small creatures appearing. But Alvy Ray Smith from Lucasfilm's graphics group, the predecessor of Pixar, asked for an additional 24 hours to draw a bolder storyboard. The result was the longest CGI sequence ever to appear in a major film at that time, slightly surpassing Tron in complexity. Computers, in 1982, were far weaker than today's smartphones, so rendering took months, with each frame carefully calculated. That scene was not only visually striking, but also symbolic, from a barren, dead planet transforming into a lush, living world. This short sequence was later reused in Star Trek 3 and 4, proving its lasting vitality. Nicholas Meyer once said that this effect elevated the entire philosophical story about creation and destruction. A quiet technical turning point, but enough to change how Hollywood viewed CGI in the future. 8. Chekhov never met Khan. I still remember the scene where Chekhov and Terrell are recognized by Khan in Star Trek II. The Wrath of Khan, when Khan roars Chekhov with clear hatred. That moment made audiences at the time feel extreme tension, but few noticed a strange detail. Chekhov never appeared in the original 1967 episode Space Seed, where Khan was first introduced and abandoned on Ceti Alpha 5. This classic continuity error has existed for more than 40 years, becoming a subject of endless debate in the fan community. Many people try to defend it by imagining that Chekhov met Khan off-screen, or that Khan read the crew records. Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov, knew about this error from the beginning, but deliberately kept silent. He feared that if he pointed it out, the studio might replace him to avoid trouble. Koenig later joked Khan hates Chekhov because he waited outside the toilet too long. In reality, the screenwriters simply forgot that detail, or did not care, because the plot needed Chekhov to be recognized to increase tension. Although it is a small error, it remains an interesting part of Star Trek, where emotion and story sometimes outweigh strict logic. 7. Roddenberry hated the military style. Nicholas Meyer admitted that he had never watched any Star Trek episode before taking on the direction of Wrath of Khan. Instead, he drew inspiration from classic naval novels, especially Horatio Hornblower, along with submarine atmosphere and British military discipline. The result was a film with ship horns, crisp uniforms, and a serious atmosphere, more like a warship than an exploratory spacecraft. Gene Roddenberry deeply hated these changes. He believed Star Trek should be about peaceful exploration, not militarism. He objected to Savick crying, something Vulcans never do, and also to the naval-style alarm horns. Meyer ignored most of the opinions and kept his style. The unexpected result, fans loved that freshness more than ever. The militarized style brought dramatic appeal, making Wrath of Khan one of the best installments of the series. A quiet behind-the-scenes conflict, but one that ultimately created new vitality for the franchise. 6. The ending was reshot because it was too despairing. Even now, the ending of Star Trek II. The Wrath of Khan still haunts me whenever I think about it. The original version was truly brutal. Spock sacrifices himself in the nuclear reactor chamber. Kirk stands, silently watching the coffin drift into space. The crew sinks into heavy grief, and then the film ends in deadly silence. When it was test-screened for audiences, the reaction was genuinely negative. Many people left the theatre feeling crushed, emotionally drained, and unwilling to return to the series. Paramount Studios worried that revenue would drop severely. They demanded that Nicholas Meyer immediately shoot additional scenes, adding the final mind meld between Spock and McCoy, then showing Spock's coffin falling onto the surface of Genesis, planting a seed of hope for resurrection. Those scenes were shot hastily over a few days with limited budget and heavy time pressure. The result was that the film no longer ended in despair, but opened a fragile ray of hope, which ultimately saved the overall emotional experience and paved the way for Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. That decision, although driven by real audience feedback, turned a pessimistic ending into a hopeful moment that many generations still remember. A quiet but deeply meaningful behind-the-scenes change. 5. Starfleet Academy was actually a miniature model. The scene where Kirk stands inside the Grand Hall of Starfleet Academy to throw Spock a surprise birthday celebration. The moment when he realizes he has grown old looks vast and solemn enough to convince audiences that it was a full-scale set. In reality, most of that space was nothing more than a foreground miniature, a carefully constructed scale model placed in the foreground of the shot. The actual set the crew built was limited to the entrance and a short stretch of corridor, just enough for the actors to stand and move. Art director Mike Miner, who had previously worked on the motion picture, personally assembled the miniature using off-the-shelf items from hardware stores, pipes, mechanical parts, scraps of metal, even a few old toys. He painted and arranged them, then carefully designed the lighting and camera angles so that on film, the model blended seamlessly with the real set, creating the illusion of a massive space with complex architecture. This technique had already been used on the motion picture as a cost-saving measure, and in The Wrath of Khan, it proved once again how effective it could be under a tight budget. Audiences at the time sat in theatres, impressed by the apparent grandeur, rarely realizing that behind that imposing scale was simply the craftsmanship of a visual artist. It's a subtle behind-the-scenes detail that serves as a reminder. Sometimes the most beautiful illusions are built from the simplest materials. 4. Judson Scott personally removed his own name from the credits. Judson Scott played Joachim, Khan's loyal right-hand man, with emotional and powerful acting. But he made the biggest mistake of his career, thinking that if he declined the opening credits, his name would still appear in the end credits, as was customary. In reality, when he asked not to be listed at the beginning, the crew misunderstood and removed his name entirely from all credits. Scott only realized this when the film was released and his name had completely disappeared. He later admitted it was the stupidest mistake he ever made, stemming from overconfidence and lack of understanding of post-production procedures. Although his performance was impressive, audiences did not know the actor behind the role. That detail became a behind-the-scenes story that was both humorous and regretful, proof that even the smallest decisions in the film industry can have major effects on a career. 3. The Vulcan dialogue was originally filmed in English. Few people notice that the Vulcan language dialogue between Spock and Savick in Star Trek II. The Wrath of Khan was not actually filmed in the Vulcan language from the start. On set, Leonard Nimoy and Kirstie Alley spoke entirely in English, just like any other dialogue scene. Nicholas Meyer and the crew decided to keep it that way to make acting easier, direction clearer, and to avoid confusing the actors with an unfamiliar language. After filming was completed, they hired linguist Mark Okrand, who later became famous as the creator of the Klingon language, to create a Vulcan language version that perfectly matched the mouth movements and rhythm of the recorded dialogue. Okrand had to analyse each frame, adjust the audio to fit lip movements, while also maintaining grammatical logic for the Vulcan language. The subtitles in the film were cleverly adjusted to conceal the English origin they displayed. Vulcan translations naturally making audiences believe the entire conversation had been spoken in an alien language from the beginning. This technique not only saved production time, but also preserved the emotional authenticity of the performances. A subtle behind-the-scenes detail showing the crew's careful attention in building the Star Trek world, where even language was crafted after the visuals were complete. 2. Khan is portrayed as a survivor of genocide Khan Noonien Singh, and the group of augments were abandoned on Ceti Alpha 5, a planet slowly dying after being displaced by an accident. Family members and companions died one by one from hunger disease and harsh environmental conditions. The film does not state it directly, but Khan's hatred stems from PTSD and survivor's guilt. The trauma of living on after loved ones are gone, the sense of betrayal by Kirk and the Federation. Ricardo Montalban delivered a nuanced performance, allowing audiences to see that Khan is not merely a pure villain, but a victim of slow, prolonged tragedy. That suffering makes the character far deeper than a typical antagonist. Nicholas Meyer constructed Khan as a deeply wounded human being, not a monster. This depth allowed Wrath of Khan to go far beyond an action film, becoming a story about hatred born from loss and how humans confront pain that cannot be healed. 1. The film made a huge profit, but a loss under Hollywood accounting. Star Trek II. The Wrath of Khan opened with record-breaking box office performance in 1982 with a production budget of about $13 million, but earning over $78 million domestically alone. Extremely high actual profit. However, according to Paramount's financial reports, the film lost more than $7 million. This was the familiar Hollywood accounting practice. The studio added all indirect costs, distribution fees, advertising interest, even expenses from other films to reduce profits on paper. The result was that investors and actors entitled to profit percentages had to wait or accept negative figures. Many involved parties were forced to audit in order to claim their rights. This practice continued for decades afterward, becoming a symbol of opacity in the film industry. Even so, Wrath of Khan remained a major success, saved the franchise, and proved that film quality can overcome any accounting tricks. A behind-the-scenes ending that is both humorous and bitter. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe so you won't miss our next videos. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.